It's a great pleasure for us at the Vernewell Academy and the Vernewell Group today to have this great event to celebrate the day of and the participation of women in science. I'm really honored today to be with four elegant ladies, yet impactful scientists internationally. So I would start by introducing our panel members today, and then I will give them the floor one after the other for their topics and presentation. We have with us today Meredith Garofalo. She's a certified broadcast meteorologist at Space Science Correspondent. Meredith is an awarded-winning and Emmy-nominated certified broadcast meteorologist and science and space correspondent. She is currently a senior meteorologist for News 12 New York, covering the Hudson Valley, Long Island, and Tri-State region. Meredith was in 2021 the chair of the AMS Station Scientist Committee, which focuses on raising greater awareness and outreach when it comes to science educations for viewers. Meredith has more than 15 years of experience in broadcast. Business includes a wide variety of experience across the US, stemming from her internship at WGN-TV in Chicago. And before joining the News 12, Meredith worked at a local television station in Ohio, South Dakota, and others. You know me. We're very honored to have you with us, Meredith.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Good morning from the United States.
Thank you. We have also Shelley Broswick with us today. She's the COO of Space Foundation. We are today traveling into the space to Mars and beyond. Shell brings a broad perspective and deep vision on the global space ecosystem, very important matter, from a distinguished career as a space acquisitions and program management leader and congressional liaison for the US Air Force. Her current role overseeing Space Foundation's three primary division, Center of Innovation and Education, Symposium 365, and Global Alliance. Advocating for space technology, innovation, entrepreneurship, diversity, and inclusion, Kelly collaborates with organizations around the world to connect the commercial, government, and educational sectors. Work champion the inclusion of underserved groups stems from staying true to the value installed while she was in the military. Patient to share her journey, give back to the space community, to contribute to the development of the next generation workforce. Let's go together to the space, Shelley. We're very pleased to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be joining you, and I look forward to a wonderful discussion this morning, and happy International Day for Women and Girls in Science.
Thank you. Danica Hannon is also with us. She's the Deputy Head of Quantum Strategy Institute, Space, Quantum Computing, Quantum. What else do we want to have tonight? It's a very, very, cutting edge topics that we are seeing today. So Danica, and during her career, she have worked internationally and domestically for non-profit and global corporation, and she has been in food and in agricultural industry and finance and technology. Now she has focused on cybersecurity, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and business development. Welcome, Danica.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Last and not least, Ms. Malak Trabil-Siluaib, space and dark technology passionate. She's the founder and the CEO of Vernewell Group, and she's the catalyst for having all of us today. Welcome, and let's start the discussion. The order you would love to start with. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So actually, we will start with Meredith, and the floor is yours. And happy International Day of Women and Girls in Science. And may the odds be with us today and forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Malak, a dear friend that during the pandemic, I had the honor of being connected with. We did a lot of Space for Women work with, just connecting people all over the world. And I am actually based in the New York City metro area. But when I was asked to do this, I had already planned a trip home to see my mom and my family in Cleveland, Ohio. So that's where I'm at right now, and kind of making this work with my phone because of the traveling. So thank you for working with me. But it's an honor to be here and with such great women. And yes, happy International Day of Women and Girls in Science. This is such an exciting day for so many, not just the little girls that dreamed about being scientists like they really, like I did actually when I was growing up, but to the women right now that are paving the path and that are making the difference in this world. And so I'll tell you a little bit about my background and where my dreams of science went, and now that I'm living my childhood dream. So when I was just 3 years old, my mom was telling me a story about surviving one of the biggest tornado outbreaks in the United States history at the time. It was the super outbreak of 1974. It was April 3rd and 4th. And my mother actually was a survivor of one of the most devastating tornadoes in Xenia, Ohio. And I don't know why she had told me the story on this day when I was 3 years old, but there was something about telling me that story that I believe was serendipity. And it was meant for me to do the field I do now as a broadcast meteorologist, both locally and nationally on television here in the United States. And so when I was little, and it's funny, my mom and I were actually just watching videos of me as little Meredith, and I was getting videos and books all about tornadoes and science. And so I was really excited about the opportunity to go into a field where I could help save lives, but also on really nice sunny days, like you can see today, I'm glowing, which gotta love Mother Nature's natural lighting. But I just decided that I really wanted to become a meteorologist, like I saw in the news. And if there was bad weather coming, I could tell people about it and warn them. And if there was good weather, I could tell them that good news too. And so back in the day, and some of you might remember, we had these little recorders, little Fisher Price tape recorders on cassette tapes. And it was like doing a Facebook Live, but not like this virtually. I was actually recording my weather forecasts. And so I started off doing that when I was just a little girl. And then I ended up going to school for a Bachelor of Science in Meteorology. And when I graduated in 2008, I went right into the television business. And now here I am, 15 years of my career, doing what I love and inspiring people. And it sounds like a great story, right? But with every story, as we know, there's always the struggles and there's always these things that we have to go through to get where we are today. And so I'll tell you, my path to get where I am today wasn't easy. You could look at my bio, you can look at my LinkedIn profile, you can see me on social media. And yes, I know I'm successful in my career, but to get to the point I'm at today, to be a public figure locally, nationally, and now internationally, it's always been very challenging. And there's a lot of things that come with my career that were a struggle, that might have set me back on my path or made me go down a different path to get where I am today. So when I was in school, I had to get a Bachelor of Science. And if you're not familiar with the meteorology program, this is 4 years of hard science work. This is physics. This is a minor in mathematics. This is thermodynamics and dynamics and taking a lot of the same classes engineering majors took. I am not good at those things at all. I was struggling so bad my freshman year that I actually had a professor tell me, Meredith, she pulled me aside and said, you really should rethink this major because I don't think with your grades, you're going to be able to graduate. So you can imagine walking into college, finally here, ready to go get my career. And I was said, no, I don't know if you can do this. So that was kind of a big blow. But ever since I was a little girl, I was always the one in front of the camera. I was always the one that said, yes, let's do this. I was a Girl Scout. I played piano. I did ice skating. I played sports. When I was in high school, when I was in middle school, I did music. I was in the band. I was so active. And through all of that, I never gave up what I wanted to do in my life because to me, that was something that was just so important. And I was taught growing up that when you really want to do something, you go for it, no matter how hard the time may seem. And as a child, I struggled a lot as well because I was different than other kids in my class. I was bullied because I looked different than other kids. And here I was in elementary school wanting to be a scientist, and the boys made fun of me. And then they told the other boys that I wasn't pretty enough, or I wasn't good enough, and I wore glasses and I didn't look like the other pretty girls. And so it was a very big struggle for me when I was trying to find out who I was, because as we know, it's during childhood, it's during high school that we are developing ourselves and we're figuring out what we want to do. And so when I had a lot of the boys making fun of me and the girls not wanting me to sit at their lunch table, and, you know, I was going through a lot of this mental and verbal and emotional abuse, just everywhere it seemed I went. It was tough. And there were a lot of times I wanted to give up. I mean, there were moments, and, you know, I remember a lot of my lowest points as a child that I didn't know if I could do it. And I had some really dark moments and I went through bouts of depression. But the one thing that I always remembered was my faith. And that when you trust, when you have faith, when you know what you want in life, it's not going to be easy, but you have to keep going. So I can say that, but I can also tell you there are a lot of those wave crashes instead of the highs that we go through, that I thought that I was going to change careers, or that I wasn't going to make it, or that I wasn't going to be good enough. But I had a lot of good mentors and I had a lot of good teachers, and I had really good friends that I had made that believed in me, that always told me, if you want to be a scientist, if you want to be a meteorologist, it doesn't matter. If you want it, girl, you go and get it. And so I kind of kept that with me as I went through school. I made friends that believed in me. I had good members of my family that were there to support me. I had teachers that kept saying, yes, go and do this. In fact, kids in my yearbook, now looking back, like decades ago, would write, hey, we'll see you on the Weather Channel, which is funny because now I'm actually doing that. So I can go back to my yearbook, and kids made fun of me then, but now they see that I'm living that dream. But what I've been through, the struggles through college and everything like that, like I said, it was a lot of work. But when I walked across my stage in 2008 and I got my degree in meteorology, I was the only woman at the time in my graduating class that was going into television as meteorologist. And when I got my first meteorologist job, I realized how little of us women there were in the broadcast TV industry that were scientists. And it was very tough to see. And it was tough to get a job, because that meant out of a spot of maybe 4 on a news station that I was going for at the time, one of those spots would open up for a woman, and the rest would be males. And a lot of them were males that had been in the business for a while, you know, so I was competing against that. And it's really changed over the years, which makes me so happy to see. I have girlfriends of mine now that are chief head meteorologists at stations. I'm a senior meteorologist now at my current television station. So it just goes to show that we have progressed as a world over all of these years and decades. And we still have a lot to go, but we are making progress. And as we know, with anything in life, progress has to come in steps. We can't just jump to the top of a mountain. You're going to go across a mountain and you're going to find a road that ends. And you got to immediately think about, okay, I got to turn around. I got to go back down this path, but I need to find another path. Or there might be a rocky path that you know is going to help you get to that next spot, but you don't have the right shoes, because, all right, ladies, we're in heels sometimes. So you got to figure it out, and you got to know how to get to that next step in life. And so I think that's the best part about all of this is the journey. And I'm just checking the time because I know I want to stay on our time. And again, as a meteorologist, I have 3 to 4 minute segments on the news. So I know I have to stay up with those, but I think I have about 5 more minutes or something like that. Malak, you can cut me off at any time.
Yes, actually, I need to learn from you because I never finish on time. So you still have time.
Good, excellent. So yes, so I started off my TV career, and you'll notice that I'm going in these chunks because literally like every part of my life has been a new chapter. And I look forward to someday, like some other amazing women in this group, of writing my own book and talking about this, because I've read some great books on women's journeys, and you know, they always resonate to you. And so, all right, I shared with you my education journey and the challenges, but got the degree, got into the business 2 weeks after I graduated, and I haven't looked back. But the television business, it may look amazing. You might see me on LinkedIn doing a weather report, or you might turn on your TV and there I am interviewing the head of NASA or the National Weather Service and say, wow, girl, like that's so awesome, right? It's not as easy as it looks. My life is on 24/7. I mean, here I am and I'm on vacation from work, but I have a commitment to the communities that I serve, to the nation, as on this very important International Day of standing as a role model. And so being a public figure is a privilege. I always look at it because I have so many people looking up to me every day, whether it's just a hi, good morning, have a good day, or it's leading these very important discussions on women and pioneering women and encouraging women to succeed in science. Because as we know, as I was just telling you, yes, we've made a lot of strides, but we still have a lot of way to go. And I'm an important part right now of a generation that's helping pave the way for the next generation of young women and the men that are going to support these young women to achieve our greatest goals. And so when I was starting off in my first TV job, I was in a very small station in Ohio. I was so excited. I was right out of college. It was great, right? And I made a very bad mistake. I accidentally said something bad and my mic was hot and it went live. And my boss came to me and said, we need your resignation. And I was 3 months into my TV career. I was mortified. I thought, oh my God, this is the end. But that lesson taught me so much now, looking back. And even though that job ended, I actually ended up having to work 3 jobs to stay where I was, to continue to search to get back into TV. And sure enough, I got my first full long-time job in Rapid City, South Dakota, which if you're not familiar in the United States, I lived in Ohio. Rapid City was in the center of the United States, and it was pretty far away from River. So I was literally picking up my life and starting a journey by myself in a city and a town that I'd never heard of. And it was the best decision I could have made. And I worked really hard. I learned not just how to be a meteorologist on television, but I also learned how to be a journalist and a reporter and the importance of storytelling. I learned how to anchor a newscast. I learned how to produce a newscast. I literally learned how to do everything in a newscast, as well as be a public figure to the communities that I was serving. And so that was great. And I had another time in my career where I had a female boss that she didn't believe in me enough. And so after being at that station for a little bit, she ended up saying, yeah, when your probationary period, I don't want you on our team anymore. And literally, I just moved across the country again for a new job. And now I know that that wasn't me, it was her. And there was some issues, and I won't go into details, but just to show me that sometimes there are going to be people that aren't going to believe in you or that aren't going to be on your path to your journey. But that is, it's changing the direction to redirect you to something better. And I ended up taking that job. I thought I was going to give up TV. I stayed in TV, and then I moved to Florida and took a job along the Gulf Coast, which was great. And since then, I've lived, as you've heard, all over the country in the United States. And now I'm settled in New York City area, which is the #1 television market in the entire United States. So I literally started off 15 years ago in one of the smallest markets. And in my career journey, I've worked my way up to the top. But being here, I am the same girl that I was when I was graduating from college. I'm the same little girl that was dreaming about being a scientist when she was 3. But now that I've worked my way into one of these top spots, that I am a face across the country and now across the world as a broadcast journalist that's also a scientist. And I report not just on science, but now I have a privilege of being a space reporter. And I'm helping tell these very important stories that are going on in space and sitting down and interviewing other women and men in STEM or in space about what they're doing and help tell their story to the general public to bring back the excitement that we saw in the beginning of the space race or during the shuttle era. And now here we are in a brand new era. And I'm still doing my weather forecast and saving lives there, but I'm also helping people move into something exciting that's happening and having the privilege of being one of the only women in the country that's a scientist that is getting opportunities as a broadcast journalist as well with a science background to tell these stories. And so checking my time, so I'm hopefully got a few more minutes, but
exactly on time, Meredith. What's an amazing journey full of determination and joy. And I think you speak with a lot of, emotion and positive vibes. And we all know how much is important to keep determination and keep, believing in ourselves, no matter what's happened, and reaching, be today, a scientist, a public figure, as you said it, after a lot of determination, amps and bumps, but you prove with that, and we really believe in it, and we keep the determination, we're gonna make it. Thank you very much, Meredith. It was a pleasure listening to you and, getting those positive vibes from your kind self.
Thank you. And you know what? I think
Thank
I'll
you,
stick
Meredith.
around for the Q&A because I can just imagine a lot of questions, and I know we could all talk forever, but there are 3 other really amazing women that are now coming up now, and I'm excited to be inspired by their stories as well.
Thank you so much, Meredith. And your story is always inspiring, and keep inspiring young girls. You are amazing. And actually, I feel the bittersweet taste of what you're saying with all the, challenges, how they are getting us to move forward. And even we don't, at the end of the day, we say, I've been through hell and I'm back. So hit me with your best shot, and actually nothing will stop us. Thank you so much, and see you. And I know that you had to go, so thank you. And we will, I give you the floor to Dr. Nabil. Thank you, Meredith. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Meredith. So we're gonna move on now with our next speaker. I'll give the floor openly, whether it's Danica or Shil who want to start with us now. So please feel free to take us to a different step and a different journey with you. We are all waiting to hear your story, your part of the story in this day when we are together celebrating Women's Day.
Well, I will jump in. I didn't see Danica's camera go on. So I'm Shelley Brunswick, Chief Operating Officer at Space Foundation, and I'm really excited to join you today to talk about the global space economy and how there's access and opportunity for all. I do have some slides, so we will see if they work. If they could be enabled to be added, that would be great. If not, I can. Thank you, Malak. I see we're good to go. So we will add those. And I'm gonna, it shows me that my slides are showing.
We can perfectly see the slide.
Perfect, perfect. What I'm gonna talk about is what the space economy is doing and how there's access for everyone around the world to be part of it. Now, we can see over the last couple of years, there have been some great achievements in the space industry. In 2021, we saw private citizens make it to space via commercial efforts. We also saw last year, 2022, we had the James Webb Space Telescope start sending back pictures and images of the earliest moments of the galaxy. And even just yesterday or the day before, we saw that SpaceX was test firing all their rocket engines for their launch vehicle. So we're seeing a lot of great opportunities as we expand into space. And many times that's what people think about when we think about space. We think about going to the moon or onto Mars and beyond. And we really are thinking about all those things. But what I really want to also highlight is how space technology is coming back to benefit us here on Earth. So we think about the global space economy. Last year, it was $469 billion, and it's projected to grow to $1.4 trillion by 2030 and over $3 trillion by 2040. And so it's a super exciting time to be part of the space industry because more than 77% of the space industry is commercial. It's products and services that we're buying and using every day. And so we're going to try to show the video. So if you can see the video, just give me a heads up that you're seeing it and you can hear it. And then if not, we'll bypass it. But I kind of wanted to highlight some of the space technology you're using every day so you can understand how space investment benefits us.
Altitude, velocity, light, 8.5 down. 220 feet. 15 forward. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff on Apollo 11.
Nope.
Extraordinary television picture here.
And this is exploration at its greatest.
This nation should commit itself to achieving the goal of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
Okay, Houston, as I stand out here in the wonders of the unknown at Hadley, I try to realize there's a fundamental truth to our nature. Man must explore.
So you were able to see a lot of amazing space technology in that short video clip that came from the Apollo era. So we're even talking today, we're using Zoom. Zoom technology, telecommunications is all based on space technology. Many of you, I love my phone. In my camera, your selfie images many of them are based on NASA imaging technology. And another great space technology is fire retardant clothing. My husband was a firefighter for 30 years, so I'm grateful to that space technology because that meant he got to come home every night. And you also saw in the video a lot of healthcare applications. I have a picture of the Hubble Space Telescope on this slide, and you're probably thinking, what does Hubble have to do with healthcare? Well, Hubble was designed to look into space for anomalies. And then a company commercialized that technology to look into the human body for anomalies. And that is now what mammogram technology is based on. So on the Day of International Women and Girls in Science, thanks to space technology, we now have mammogram detection that has saved millions of women's lives. We also can talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. We're very passionate about how do we benefit life here on Earth. And so some people will say, well, instead of going to space, why don't we just focus on solving our challenges on Earth? And I would rather say, let's go to space and solve our challenges on Earth. We have the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that were all agreed to by the UN members in 2015. And each and every one of them has a space component. If you go to the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, you will find a drop-down menu that will highlight how space technology and space activities are benefiting each and every one of those Sustainable Development Goals. And at Space Foundation, we're passionate about quality education, gender equality, economic development, and partnerships. And so I'll just highlight a couple areas and how they benefit us. We can think about zero hunger and food security, and space technology has a myriad of applications that help us every day. On the far left are 3 entrepreneurs that started their company when they were students at Qatar University, and they were majoring to be nutritionists. And what they wanted to do was create a healthy, delicious snack that would also reduce food waste. So what they did is they looked at fruits and vegetables that would normally be thrown away. Now we think about the perfect produce that we get when we go to the grocery store, but that means a lot of produce is left in the fields to rot because it's not perfect. It might have not be quite the way we think about how a banana looks. So what these nutritionists did is they partnered with NASA using a very old form of space technology, freeze-dried products, freeze-dried food, and they took the fruits and vegetables that would normally be thrown away, they freeze-dried them, and now they've created a healthy, delicious snack that helps reduce food insecurity in the Middle East and also reduces food waste. And there's several other types of space technology, but for time, we'll save that for another day. We can also think about water. As we see the climate changing around the world, some areas are becoming more wet and some areas are becoming more dry. We're seeing, like in Kenya, a 5-year drought. And how water affects us, especially women in Africa, is that women have to walk 4 to 10 miles one way to retrieve water in many villages in Africa. My good friend Lumbi Mlambo is on this slide, and she had to do that when she was a little girl. So she created an organization to drill for wells, or in Africa they call them boreholes, so that women and girls would only have to walk 30 minutes one way to retrieve water for their families. Because when they had to walk 4 to 10 miles one way, that prevented them from going to school or getting jobs. So that created more poverty, and it eliminated their ability to have quality education or gender equality. The other thing is, when they had to go get the water from streams, that water may have been contaminated. So not only were their families getting sick, but all their animals as well. So by drilling these wells closer to the villages, they're allowing women and girls to now go to school, get jobs, the water is safe, and it's usable. And one of the great things is, we as humans have been living in space for more than 20 years on the International Space Station. So that means every drop of water, and I have my morning Diet Sunkist, or, Mountain Dew or Gatorade or whatever we all drink. That means every drop of water on the International Space Station has to be filtered and recycled and reused. And so NASA has created that filtration system on the International Space Station, but that has also been commercialized. So now companies have taken that same filtration system, and you can go into a camping store in America, buy a water bottle that has that compact filtration system, and go hiking, and then use water in streams or puddles and filter it and drink it. The other thing on the International Space Station is they test that water. So even though they filter it, they still have a way of testing it to make sure all the harmful contaminants are removed. Well, we've made that technology available on Earth as well. So now wells that could get contaminated from monsoons or hurricanes can be tested to make sure that surge water or contaminated water did not get into the drinking wells or water system that people are using. We can also look at satellite technology as it goes over the Earth observation, and look to see where there might be water that we can drill for versus traditional methods that Lumbi has been using. Because what we've learned is the satellite imaging technology and mapping looks to be more accurate in finding water than traditional methods. So just a few ways that we're trying to solve hunger as well as water. And we have to talk about energy, because we know that we have to look at different forms of energy as we look to mitigate climate change, and we have to reverse climate change. So one of the great forms of space technology that many of us use are solar panels. That came from the Apollo era, when we used in satellites to capture energy for those satellite technology. And now NASA is looking to improve solar panels. So one, increase their efficiency, and two, make them self-cleaning. And self-cleaning means they could vibrate to clean the dust off them. Because what happens is, on Mars, dust storms could cover half the planet and last for months. And once those solar panels get covered, they become less and less efficient until they eventually go dormant or die. Well, we can't allow that to happen with humans living on Mars. So we have to look at more energy efficient solar panels. But we can also use those solar panels here on Earth, because there are a lot of places where dust also covers solar panels and makes them less efficient. So that's one form that we can do to improve energy here on Earth. So I'm going to skip the next video, because I really want to talk about what are the opportunities for you to come into the space industry. So when we think back to the 1960s in the Apollo era, we were really focused on putting a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth. But now we're focused with the Artemis Accords on putting the first woman and person of color on the moon. And this time we go to stay. We can also think about all the technology. Malak and her company are amazing with technology and quantum. And many times people think some technology is separate from the space industry, but it's really all the same. So I've put on this slide some of the emerging forms of space technology and how it's related to space, like healthcare and energy storage and quantum technology and artificial intelligence and robotics and more. So if you're interested in technology, you could find a pathway into the space industry as well. We also many times think about the space economy as just being space. We're thinking about, Elon Musk, or we're thinking about, Jeff Bezos and rockets and going to Mars. But the space economy isn't all of these sectors. It's part of agriculture and education, energy, environment, finance. So you could have a passion for one of these economic sectors, and also it relates to space. So we think about that workforce from the 1960s, primarily it was 2 countries. It was primarily a STEM workforce, primarily male, and government workers. And now we're looking at a diversity of workforce. Regions of the world, we have regions, people from all over the world on the call today, multi-generational, as well as gender equality. So you can highlight how everyone can find their way into the space industry. And it's also about a diversity of careers. Again, space was primarily about STEM careers, science, technology, engineering, and math. But now we need more than 50 different careers in the space industry. So astronauts to artists, entrepreneurs to investors, technicians and teachers, program managers and policymakers, and more. So it's never been a better time to come into the space industry. There's now access and opportunity for all. So I'm going to stop there, and I look forward to having more questions during the Q&A session. So thank you, Nabil and Malak, for inviting me today.
Thank you, Shelley. I cannot agree with you more on the role played by the space technology, not only as an alternative. People might say this is a plan B. It's a plan A before a plan B, because maybe the fascination factor of the space let the technology to be developed in a faster way, tested in a sometime a way, and then coming back on Earth. And another example we have is between defense and civil application and the internet that is today a must, to use for all of us. We have to remember that internet was initially military application, and then we democratize it and we use it differently. The examples you have been using is how space technology is today a chance for humanity. Push to the extreme, a lot of technologies mature faster than if we don't have that challenge to go to space. So it's, as you said it very well, in the same time, allowing us, find an alternative, work for the space, but it's also seamlessly allowing us to reach our goals on Earth and to make life on Earth in a better way. The ecosystem you presented is just fantastic. So thank you very much. This was very thrilling, and I'm really, really very excited to learn more, but unfortunately, time is not allowing us to go with more than that. Thank you very much. Malak, back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shelley. It was amazing as usual. Very, very insightful and eye-opener for so many people who are not familiar with the space industry. Always is a pleasure to have you and to hear from you. Thank you, Shelley. So we will pass the floor to Danica. Actually, Dr. Nabil, he introduced Danica, but feel free, because so many people, they joined lately after the introduction. So feel free to introduce yourself, and please, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Malak. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Sure, it's visible, yes.
Perfect. All right, so first of all, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Here in Colorado, it's early in the morning. I have my parents who dialed in from Iowa. It's early in the morning too. Malak and team, you're hosting this late at night on a Saturday evening. So it's really fantastic to have such an international audience all in the same place that's pushing towards the same goal of making sure that the STEM field is as diverse and as successful as it can be. In that theme, I wanted to give a presentation about how to find your way into STEM and thrive. So for today's agenda, we'll go over introductions. I'm here representing myself, but also the Quantum Strategy Institute. So I'll touch briefly on both those things. And then Malak had the neatest idea for this presentation. She asked that we tie our presentations back into the Sustainable Development Goals. Shelley did a wonderful job talking through that, and I'll continue that theme by talking about innovation and partnership and their very critical roles that they play in sciences. And then we'll hold questions for the end. So we'll have a segment of questions coming up. So for the Quantum Strategy Institute, I know some of you are familiar with us, some of you aren't, so we love to reach new audiences. It's fantastic to be able to speak to those of you who are new to QSI. We're a think tank whose goal is to increase the consumer adoption of quantum computing. So we're made up of a bunch of business and technology leaders who just really love the quantum computing industry, and we want to see it succeed. So our mission is to go out and to write articles for business leaders in particular about how they can be using quantum computing for their industries and how they can take advantage of this emerging technology. And for myself, I love where business and technology meets. So for me, that's where the magic happens. I have a very strong sense of curiosity and have quite a bit of fun working with teams and solving hard problems. So the neat thing about that is that my career has led me through a few different industries. So I got to start out with food and ag because that's a space where you can help so many people in such a big way, whether you're focusing on countries with agricultural systems that are still growing, like Shelley talked about, where water scarcity is a big issue, but making a well can have a huge impact on quality of life. So if you look at food and ag in countries like that, you can make these relatively small changes in some ways that'll have huge outsized impacts on quality of life. And then if you look at countries like the US with their food and agriculture, you can feed very large populations. So I was drawn to food and ag because no matter where you sat in the ecosystem, you could help people. And I really liked that. I ended up transitioning out of food and agriculture. I went into the fintech space, and I did that by focusing on how much I like working with people and problem solving. When I moved into fintech, I started learning about data science, and I saw that we have a few data scientists on this call, so shout out to all of you for the incredible work that you're doing. Started learning about data science, and around the same time, I began learning about quantum mechanics, and that is what really sparked my journey to move heavily into the STEM area. So right now I'm in the quantum computing industry. I'm also a cybersecurity master's student, so I'm working on moving into the cybersecurity industry. And as we go through this presentation, we'll talk about how you can move from industry to industry, what you need to do to get to where you want to go. Like Meredith had talked about in her presentation, she started in one of the smallest markets for meteorology. And in not a very long time, she's worked her way up to the biggest market. So Meredith is a fantastic example of how you can set goals for yourself and then figure out how to get there in a very smart way. So we're going to touch on some of those same themes today. So when it comes to innovation, and that's one of those sustainable development goals, one of the critical things to do when you're just getting ready to go is start with what you love. For me, I started reading about quantum mechanics and I began taking math classes on my own. So for several years, I was studying discrete math and linear algebra just independently. You know, I'd go to places like Udemy and Coursera, and I would find different classes that I could take on math. And I would be spending my Friday nights and my Saturday nights studying on my own because I thought that's what was a lot of fun. Now that I am a master's student and I'm formally studying this in a classroom setting, what I've started to realize is that all the work that I put in over the years, for one, it was very worthwhile. So it helped set me up for success where I am now. But for two, it turns out that discrete math and linear algebra are actually used in a number of areas in the STEM field. I had thought that it was just for quantum mechanics and quantum computing, but come to find out that it's also used in artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. So one of the neatest things about the sciences is that when you take a step back and you look at everything from a big picture view, it looks intimidating because it seems like everything is so different and so unique. And how can you possibly figure out how to move from one area to another, or how to learn these industries when everything is just different? But what I came to learn over the years is that they actually all have this common core of mathematics and engineering. So if you can find an area that's really interesting to you and use that as your motivator to start studying and to start learning that, then it won't be very long before all the learnings that you're taking can start to transfer over to new areas. So as you're thinking about moving into STEM and how to create your path, don't let yourself get caught up in thinking that it's too intimidating, it's too overwhelming. Just start with one thing that you love, use that as your foundation, and it'll come to pay off down the road for you. So also in the theme of innovation, we're going to be looking at ethical hackers. So in cybersecurity, there's something that I've learned about over the past year that I just think is so cool. And it's this idea of an ethical hacker. An ethical hacker is someone who is hired by a business to try and break into their systems. So what they'll do is, like, if Target, they're a very big retailer in the US, Target would hire an ethical hacker and they'd say, hey, we're going to give you a week to try and steal our customer data. Just see if you can do it. The hacker will go in, they'll do anything that they can think of to try and get into Target systems, and they'll come back with a report for Target's business leaders, and they'll say, okay, I was successful, I did get into your data, and here's how I did it. What's so cool about what's so neat about ethical hackers is just how creative and how determined they are. And as you look at an ethical hacker, you can take lessons from their journey and how they move into areas that are barriered, that are hard to get into. You can take the learnings that they have and you can apply them to your own journey. So let's look at a few things that they do. So for one, they gather open source intelligence. Sorry, someone may have come off of mute.
There's a noise somewhere. Please keep your mics off at all time. I don't know who has his mic on.
It's fine now, Malak. It's fine.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. No, it's all good. That's happened to me too. I have accidentally interrupted presentations. So. So ethical hackers will gather open source intelligence. So if one were to go into Target, they would look up and they would try and find all the public information they could about Target security systems, who's working there. They would do a really good job of understanding Target from both a business standpoint and from a technical standpoint. A second thing they're going to do is they're going to have a great understanding of how the technical environments work, including the strengths and the weaknesses of those environments. And then they're going to track their findings across assessments. So they're going to start with Target one week. The next week, they could go to Best Buy. The next week, they could go to International Space Station. The point is, these ethical hackers will learn from every single experience they have, and they're going to build on all of those learnings. Now, how does that tie in for you? So for you, as you're thinking about moving into the STEM field, or maybe you're already here and you want to pivot to a new area, you're going to follow some of the same things that the ethical hackers do. So say you want to move from quantum computing into cybersecurity, like I'm doing right now. The first thing that you need to do is start networking with people in the industry that you want to go to. So show up at networking events, show up at events like this where everyone's putting into the chat a little bit of information about them and their LinkedIn profile so that we can connect with each other and keep the conversation going after the event. Learn the needs of the industry that you're targeting. So start reading about industry news, follow people who are influencers on LinkedIn and who write a lot about the industry and talk about it quite a bit so that you can understand what's going on in the industry and how your skill sets can fit into there. And the third thing that's very important to do is to pay attention to feedback and to adjust as you go. So during informational interviews, pay attention to how people respond to your background, pay attention to what they think about your goals. And you'll notice that people will start to give you feedback. And sometimes it's nonverbal. Sometimes you'll see in their faces if they think that you could be doing something a little bit differently, they might frown a little bit. I say that from experience. Or if they think that your goals make a lot of sense, they'll smile at you or they'll tell you it verbally. So you'll want to learn from ethical hackers in cybersecurity, and you'll take the same methods that they do of being very thoughtful, doing a lot of research, very creative and determined, and you'll use that for building your own career path. Another thing to do with innovation is run your own pilot projects. So look at an example from Volkswagen. Volkswagen started talking publicly about the work that they were doing with quantum computing around 2017. At that time, they were doing experiments with optimizing traffic flows, so making sure that they could get a car from point A to point B in the shortest amount of time possible. And they started out by using a static data set. So this was data that had already been gathered years before. It was free and available for anyone to use. So they used that data set in 2017. It was static. And they took all their learnings from that And about 2 years later, they did a similar project, but this time they did it with live data. And that's a much harder challenge. But what you can learn from Volkswagen is that every time you try something new, look at it as a pilot. Look at it as a pilot project or a proof of concept. Pardon me. So this can be as simple as, say you showed up today and you're just starting to build out your network in this space. You sent your LinkedIn profile link into the chat and you connect with people. So that's a fantastic experience to start building up your confidence. That alone, you could see that as a little science experiment. Now, if you want to take that further after this, you could reach out to someone you connected to and say, hey, your background caught my eye. It'd be great to connect with you. I'd love to learn about what you're doing. Could we have a 15-minute conversation so that I can learn from you? And that can be another experiment. And you'll want to look at everything you're doing. Look at everything you're doing as a series of small experiments where you learn from them every single time. And the more experiments you do, the more learnings you gain, the easier it's going to be for you to build out your network and to start really thoughtfully charting your path into the STEM space and where you want to go. So again, for innovation here, look at Volkswagen as a real world example for how they started with a small static data project in 2017. About 2 years later, they went on to do something with live data. And they did that by running a smaller project and then making it bigger. Also for innovation, something that's very important to do is to bring new ideas together. In the quantum computing space, there is a company that I have been so impressed with. They're called Multiverse Computing. Multiverse started off being very focused on the financial space, but over the last 2 to 3 years, they have branched out from being solely focused on finance to starting to move into areas like energy and cybersecurity. And one of the neatest use cases that they've done lately is they've moved into manufacturing. And now they're using quantum computing, digital twins, and manufacturing to look at these very large manufacturing plants and understand how they can make them more efficient. That is a big leap to go from finance to manufacturing. And I know from talking with Multiverse's leaders that the way that they did that was by listening to people. And specifically, there's a couple of business leaders at Multiverse who I know well and who I have a lot of respect for. And what they do is they'll go out and they'll talk to people every day to try and understand what are their hardest business and technical problems, and then look at how they can bring quantum computing in to work on solving those challenges. So I have a business development background, and there's this idea around sales and business development that the most important skill you can have is to be a good talker. That's actually the opposite. With business development, it is incredibly important to be a good listener. That's how you find the ideas that other people are missing, because you listen to what people are saying, you ask thoughtful questions, and you just let them talk. So with innovation, we're going to pull two unrelated ideas together and make something really neat and new. You have to listen to people. And as an example of a team that's doing that very well, we can look to Multiverse and the work that they've done and how they've moved out of finance and really expanded the scope of what they do. The last thing for innovation that is just so important is to believe in yourself. So I put a couple of graphs in here that I thought were very striking. So the first one is about the Dunning-Kruger effect. And it shows how when you first start off with something, you feel really good, you feel like it's easy, like you can conquer the world, like this won't be a problem. And then you start solving more and more problems and you realize, oh, this is very hard. So you start with this wonderful peak of confidence, you gradually, or sometimes very quickly, move down to a place where you start to feel frustrated, like maybe you're not smart enough, you just can't get it. But then the more work that you put into that, if you can keep going, if you can keep showing up, even when it's uncomfortable and even when it's extremely hard, then you start to move out of that and you start to move up the curve to when you feel good again. And now you have all this knowledge to back you up. I have realized that every single time I start to learn something new with STEM, I move through this Dunning-Kruger effect. Every single time. I have noticed this happening now for several years. it has gotten to the point where I was joking with my husband that I'm not going to tell him when I think that things are going well now, because every time I tell him that something's going well, the next day it gets really hard. So don't give up on yourself. Know that this is a very universal experience. And in some ways, it's the price of moving into this field. You have to get comfortable with facing your own fears and your self-doubts, like Meredith had talked about. And you have to trust yourself and know that if you put in the work, you can make it out to the other side. Another thing that I wanted to add in here is that we look at the people who are the most honored in the STEM field and who reach the highest achievements. We'll look at this as Nobel Prize winners in STEM. They don't start winning prizes until they're later in life. So if you're at the beginning of your career, or if you're just trying to figure out how you can start to move in STEM and you think that maybe the timing isn't right, or you're too young, or that it's not paying off quickly enough, just know that there are people who have dedicated their entire career to the STEM field. And the majority of them do not receive recognition until they've been doing this work for decades. So it just goes back to the idea of, this is very hard, but stick with it. It will get easier if you keep going, and know that even if the recognition or the learning is delayed, it will show up. So just keep the faith in yourself, keep putting in the study time, and you'll get there. All right, so now we have a couple more slides. So now we're going to touch on the idea of partnerships. For those of you in data science, this graph may look familiar. So this is an idea from artificial intelligence where you can look at a data set and you can find similarities in it. So for this particular algorithm, we're looking at the k-nearest neighbors algorithm. And what you can do here that's pretty neat is you can think about these different colors as industries that you could want to move through. So for me, let's say I start out in red, we'll call that food and ag. Started out in food and ag, realized I needed to change, looked over, saw fintech, that would be blue. And if you look at where the blue and the red meet, you can see that there's some dots in blue on the red side and some red dots on the blue side. So you can try and figure out, where do these industries sit closely together and what skills will transfer over. So for food and ag to finance and technology, it was the teamwork and problem solving that let me jump. Those skills were very valuable in both industries. So I jumped from red to blue by using teamwork and problem solving. Then I went from blue fintech to green quantum computing by using those data science skills that I picked up in fintech. And when I was in fintech, I also really worked heavily on relationship management skills. So that's another area where I looked at, okay, so it looks like these areas aren't related on the surface, but I know if I do some digging, I can find the connections there. And I use that connection of the data science and the relationship management to move out of fintech and into quantum computing. Whenever you want to change from one area to another, you need to work hard at finding the similarities. And you can think of this as you're jumping from one cluster to another. So if you're someone who uses artificial intelligence at all, you can tie some math into this too and think about, where are the shortest jumps that I can make. And the last thing that we'll touch on for partnerships is graph relations. And cybersecurity, graph relations are used to understand how systems fit together. So if you're someone who needs to defend against an ethical hacker, one thing that's going to be very important for you to know is how all of your computer networks fit together, so that you can anticipate, okay, so if hacker were to get into point A or node A is connected to nodes B, C, and D. It's just connected to B, C, and D. But then if we look at D is then connected to E and F. So if the hacker gets into A, they can really make their way all the way to F, even though A isn't directly connected to F. So we're going to take this idea from cybersecurity, where you can use a graph to understand how things fit together, to look at your own network and how you should be building out networks in this space. So as an example, I've been working on this project for the Quantum Strategy Institute where I needed to talk to different cultural experts. I needed to talk to someone in the automotive industry, and I needed to talk to a couple of people from South Africa. So I put myself as a node on this graph in the top left, And to connect to this auto expert, who I had no real personal connections with, I reached out to a contact of mine and said, hey, I know that you have a really good relationship with this gentleman. Could you introduce me to him? So that's how I went from having no connection to this automotive expert to getting connected to the first quantum computing expert. Then he introduced me to the industry expert. That's our first graph branch. To get to the South African cultural experts, there was a second quantum computing expert who had really nice connections to someone who has experience in South Africa. So I reached out to him and said the same thing. He introduced me to that first cultural expert. And then at the end of the conversation, that gentleman was very kind. And he said, you know, there's someone else that I really think you should talk to. Let me introduce you to her. So he introduced me to another woman who is an expert in South African culture. So as you're building up your network in the STEM community, it's important to look at who do you know and how can they introduce you to people that you also really want to know, because those conversations are going to lead you to informational interviews where you can learn more about the industry you're targeting. They can lead you to these insightful conversations where you get the career coaching that you need to move forward. Or they can lead to friendships that'll end up lasting a long time. So you don't really know where they're going to go when you get started. But you do know about these relationships and networking is that it's incredibly important for your career. Actually, if you could only remember one thing from this presentation today, or mine in particular, I would say remember that networking is the one most important thing that you can do for your career, especially when it comes to the STEM field. So we borrowed an idea from cybersecurity here. They use graph relationships to understand how their technology systems fit together. You can use graph relationships to understand how your people relationships fit together.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Danica. An amazing proof that, you know, science and technology are universal, and we have to work today on a cross-disciplinary environment. And you illustrated how technologies or practices or theories in some area can easily be useful in another, with, of course, the need for human capabilities in order to be able to develop those dots, to acquire those competencies. Very insightful. I would like to thank you very much. And now we still have one presentation. Last and not least, Malak, our CEO at the Vernewell Group. Malak, the floor is yours, please.
Unmute myself first, as usual. Okay, thank you so much for the great presentation. I always love to hear ladies speaking about their experience and you know, the challenges and how they circumvented such challenges. Thank you so much, Meredith, for staying. It's I did not expect you will stay because I know you have other things to do, and thank you for being there. So it's I don't know what I was thinking about what I will be speaking about today. I've been since last year's active into women empowerment, women access into the space sector, technology, different kind of emerging technologies, new technology. And if you are following me on social media, you would see, or following actually the activities of Vernewell Management Consultancies since some time, and now Vernewell Academy, the newly launched company, and it's a learning center to complete the activities that we are leading in the MENA region right now. Vernewell Management Consultancies is the first to lead quantum advisory and consultancies in the area, and bringing the education part into that. So I was thinking what I'm going to be speaking about today. And I think actually, first of all, I would like to highlight the role of sustainability into our leap into the future, because the way how we are moving forward right now, it's very essential to mitigate the climate risks and to move forward with disrupt disruptive technologies to find solution to mitigate the risks of what actually it's not risk anymore. It's there. The climate change is imminent threat now, and as we call it, multiplying effect, which increase the risks that we have today. So I would like to first of all highlight the sustainable development concept and its essential role in order to be understood, because up to today we have skepticals. They don't believe in climate change, and we have others, they don't understand exactly what is the sustainable development concept itself, and they are mixing between the concept and the goals. And actually it's very, very important to highlight a certain part, which is historically the 1987 report of the World Commission on Environment and Development, or what we call it also the Brundtland Commission, was the first international instrument to define sustainable development and to identify its conceptual elements. So the definition of sustainable development, actually, it's not only related to sustainability, which is the environmental factor. Actually, it is defined by the following: our common future report, and it is remains the most quoted notion and definition, albeit all the ambiguity that it's related to the sustainable development concept and the vague definitions that it can be understood. So it is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. And it added that sustainable development is a process of change in which the exploitation of resources, the direction of investment, the orientation of technological development, and institutional change are all in harmony and enhance both current and future potential to meet human needs and aspirations. So here we see so many interrelated facets into it. You have different elements, and actually I've done a part of my academic research, and it's within my thesis, which is related to the international law, how the integration of this concept into the stream of or how this concept was injected into the stream of international law arena. So it is actually, what I can say, it is the interrelation of different dimensions. First of all is the economic dimension. The second one is economic growth. The second one is the environmental protection. And this is is associated with the socioeconomic development. So it is interrelated, and there are pillars or dimensions, as I said, which are components, or we call it also in the concept itself, the legged stools, or the triple bottom lines of these interrelated. Okay, bottom line is how can we make the balancing of interest within these different competing interests, because actually it could be competitive to achieve an economic growth while respecting the environment. So we need to make that balance in order to move forward. And actually innovation is one of the most important elements in order to move forward, which is very, very important. So, and how can we integrate the innovation into the role of women? And here I will share my screen and move to another onto the presentation and I will stick to my time. Actually, Nabil, I will not take more than what is supposed and maybe less. So I will have the presentation. So I will share, if you can see mine. So it's all about the women role into achieving, first of all, the sustainable development goal through the science and innovation. Actually, I've been working with women and men into the arena of what is related to technologies. And of course, if you know my path, I come from the legal background and I entered into space sector and technology after that, because I highlighted one important point is how can we move forward into the next leap into space on becoming multiplanetary by bringing an added value to what we are working on in the space industry. And actually, the solution by founding Vernewell Management Consultancies was to bring the deep tech into the space industry. So spin in, which we don't see it much. We don't see a lot of companies that are working on the spin, so many they working on spin-offs. So for me, that's why we are working on dark technologies in order to make the connection to the space industry and bring that catalyst or that innovative background in order to achieve something that it is disruptive, at the same time mitigate the risk through the governance and through the international norms and, of course, the codes of conduct that the parties need to adopt. So here about the active participant of women in this is crucial in order to succeed. And in order to have this mindset to go further, to transform a scientific idea into innovation. And I've seen so many women that are brilliant and they have great ideas and papers and they are scientists. And they come to me is like, okay, I have this idea and I want to have a startup. And actually the first thing that it is there is like, okay, what is the innovation? I'm not talking about the invention. What is the innovation means like how we can transform your patent or your idea or your scientific discovery into something that it can solve a problem. I met people, women and men, who had patents for the last 20 years. They never commercialized it. And that's why Vernewell was born. This is one of the things, is like, how can we help those disruptors in order to bring their disruption to be useful for the community and to serve the sustainable development goals, which is the what comes from the concept itself. So actually, in order to do that, there are a lot of components need to be there. First of all, is the innovation part. And when I say innovation part, it's crucial. Innovation and creativity, it's very, very important for us in order to transform the discovery or the breakthrough to be useful. For example, I had met some innovators, and most of them, they are ladies. And those innovators, they are in the space industry, and they have amazing solution to solve, and they have worked on the idea. But the problem, the solution, in order to be implemented, there are a lot of issues related to the business model. So how can we convince those investors in order to put the money and invest in your activity to move forward? So this is the trick, one of the tricks that it needs to be there. So it's a process, is the creativity, the business element, and the way how we need to look further, because actually bringing a startup or idea in order to solve a problem, it is very important to have that problem viable and sustainable. Look, sustainability, we come back to the long term. In order to solve a problem, you need to be viable, you need to stay forward. And it's very, very important to be active participant within the process itself by bringing something. And I tell you, I worked with men and women, and I figure out there's one thing, and sorry, I have men here. Women, they always bring solutions. They don't stress on the problem. It's unbelievable. It's related to the way how we are thinking, I think, and there is a different way how men they think, and I see that more and more, and we are complementing each other, that's for sure. But there is something that women always bring to the table, is we don't stress on the problem. Actually, we find solution. That's how we are. I think the way how we are active with our family, with our kids, with our brothers and sisters, and look after, a household, we always find solution. And this is very, very important. There's something that it needs to be put into perspective, is the creativity of women and problem solving. So if I go to the obstacles, I will keep on going. What we see as obstacles, I start with one thing, which I face every day, is the undermining the leadership of women, and I see it all the time. There is something that I see it also in. It's not only because I am in the Middle East, or I am in the MENA region and work with more people from this area. Actually, I work internationally, and I see that. And I see it that there is a unconscious bias that needs to be solved. And at the end of the day, it's unconscious. So I try my best in order to try to disrupt that and to shake that status quo in a way or another that it's happening. Imagine, I hear, Meredith, what you said about when you were at school and you were getting a lot of, issues, and it push you forward in order to do that. We are strong. There are a lot of women that they are not having the same character, and actually they can be vulnerable. And here I say, working on the skills is our skills in order to move forward and to be perseverant is very, very, very important. So when I talk about the skills of the future, actually, it's not me only who's talking about it. It's a part of the UAE agenda, is to prepare our youth to face the future through specific skills. And we are in the UAE more and more determined to help the youth, and of course our generation, because actually it's not about only age, it's about the collective neural network to work together in order to move forward and to catalyze what we are doing and catalyze innovation. Because at the end of the day, innovation, or being innovator alone without having the other skills that it can be complementary, actually we cannot move forward with our innovation. So we have soft skills which are very, very important, but also there are other skills that we are working on right now under Vernewell Academy, which called MAD skills. Totally different. The soft skills we're working on are or I'm going to speak about the let's say traditional one. We disrupted the way how we want to deliver and make, let's say, the skills of the future in a way, combining the hard skills and of course, the breakthroughs, technological development, quantum technologies, and all the cutting edge technologies, but bring in some other elements in order to complete that. So I will go through some of the skills that we all know: problem solving and critical thinking, very important, of course. And then trustworthiness, it's very, very important. The other point, and here I go back to the effective communicators and how women can be effective communicators and work together under collaborative initiatives in order to move forward. Let's move beyond the competition. Actually, and I refused many times from people, they come, can you be in our survey, not survey, but the best women of this and that? Actually, they ask for payment. Others, they do it for free. But actually, they bring that mentality of the unnecessary competition and healthy competition on the table between women. And actually, it only undermines all our common efforts, because if we are here, I'm number one in this list, I'm number one in this list, and even the list that, or the criteria that it's made, come on, now it's not the Nobel Prize. It's not something that for people to bring, breakthroughs, and they are going through criteria that it can put them up there. It's just unnecessary, and it's not really important. And this, I fight against it, because actually it undermines all our efforts to bring women up. And sorry, because I am talkative and I shout out loud for things that I believe is not necessary. We need to bring our confidence higher and work together to elevate ourselves as one, because all what is happening in terms of the women empowerment, it can be one effort and not different scattered efforts here and there, and that's it. So there's one more thing. The emotional intelligence is very, very important, and we see it more and more. Actually, if you are a great innovator, if you are amazing disruptor, but there is the element of the emotional intelligence that it is not there, actually you undermine all your people that you're working together and can create issues that it's not worth it, and bring the collective work down and the innovation down and the cause and the purpose that we are working on into a level that we don't want to go with. Strategic vision is very important, and actually women, they have amazing strategic foresight. Then I will touch upon something very important that I spoke about before, and this is what I teach my son since he was kid, and actually now he speaks better than a lawyer, because actually I integrated the habits of mind from a law perspective, and now no one can beat him, even his teacher. If he does something that is not appropriate, he comes, and of course I disagree about that, of course, but at the end of the day, it's something that's very important to bring the habits of mind into perspective. This habits of mind is not my discovery. Actually, it's psychologically written about theory, and it's worth to look at, because within these criteria or factors under the habits of mind theory, we can move forward, and we have actually, you can hear anecdote, habits and mind, how can be critical or can bring us critical thinking into the subject. Well, please read about it, because actually it encourages us to be persistent, to have thinking about thinking, which is very important. Thinking and communicating with clarity and precision, and actually taking responsible risks, because risks is very important to be taken in innovation and in science. Otherwise, we stay there. So, and actually responsibility in taking risk is very important. Managing impulsivity is really, really important. And this one, actually, creators tend always to be impulsive. And here, managing that point is critical. Striving for accuracy, gathering data through all senses, and not just gathering data for data and take it as a fact. No, it's to be critical about it. And also finding humor, being humorous, and having that type of humor into what we do every day, to bring it to the community of innovators is very, very important. Listening with understanding and empathy, questioning and posing problems, which I do all the time on LinkedIn, is I poke the minds. What I do is I go and bring very, very critical subjects. And I know sometimes some people, they come and it's shocking. It's disrupting the normal thinking or disrupting the normal. And this is what is important to be like mind poking. I like that word. So creating, imagining, and innovating, of course, is going under all this. The other one is thinking interdependently, thinking flexibly, and applying past knowledge to this new situation. And here I'm going to say, past knowledge also goes under the past unsuccessful trials. When we are unsuccessful for something, embrace it. This is a part of the process. Actually, we succeed, wow, but let's share our failures and learn from the failures. That's the only way how we can be innovative, and that's the only way how we can bring solutions. Actually, we see social media glorifying success, but actually it should also take into perspective and into account all the failures that we have, and embrace it, and actually also learn from it, and not be shy or not be embarrassed from failure. We are human. We are not perfect, and it's a part of the process. So responding with wonderment and awe. So it's important to respond with that in order to keep going and increase our potentials and also bring creativity and also remaining open to continuous learning. And here I'm going to pass the floor to Dr. Nabil in order to speak about this particular point that it is related to math skills. And for me, I will end my presentation now, and I hope I did not take too much time.
No, perfectly on time. Thank you very much, Malak. Very insightful. And you said it well, and you folks have done it. And I think this comes as a perfect conclusion, importance of the human capabilities in being creative, in linking things, finding the right way of doing it. And we need to equip new generation with those human skills needed for tomorrow, because the requirement is much more than what we need to, what we used to have before. We have now a lot of disruptive technology. We have a lot of elements that will take us aside, left and right. And we need, at the end, focus on a human. The key of success in being able to encapsulate, to use properly the technology, to move from one sector to another, is to be able to be creative, to be able to be human, to be able to maintain your motivation, to be able to create a synergy in a group, to be able to attract positive vibe in any group of reflection, right? Without that, this negative competition that you are presenting and saying we should not go to that, as a human factor, it will emerge. So that's why in education, we are speaking today about what are the key success of tomorrow, what we want the youth to have. And that's how the concept of mad skill came to. It's to say usually in your signature, March and Beyond, I would say human and beyond. It's more than just the simple human skills that we used to see, which is, critical thinking, working in a group, motivating people, appreciating them, having empathy, and it's going beyond that. And I will give a simple example. When do you appreciate people? I think everyone gonna tell me we appreciate people when they do good, right? When they succeed, right? When they treat the best, right? That's what we used to do. Well, let me tell you, appreciation is changing. We need to appreciate people when they fail, the moment they never expected, because if they fail after trying the best they can do, that's the moment your appreciation will, catapult them, will boost their determination, the determination that Meredith was speaking about at the beginning. And that's why at Vernewell Academy, we come up with this concept of mad skills. It's mapping of more than 12 core skills, 16, creativity skills and data skills. So there is a lot of innovation capabilities. There is a lot of technology there, but we are tackling it from a different way. How we need to deal with it from the human side. How we make sure, for example, if we are bringing new technology, your team will take it. They will not see the data as a fair. Today, when you speak to a team and you ask them to bring data to validate their decision, they feel, fear of it. If you bring it from a different perspective, let's together have a reflective analysis of it. See that group reflection will lead that everyone will bring a piece of data and we'll see how important it is. So we come up with this concept of math skills, and I think Americans are not, strange to this word. If you remember, in the middle of the pandemic, companies start looking to math skills for people to hire them and say math skill is any element to bypass your capabilities and you move it from your blue water to the red water. So we believe that these human capabilities, being able to tackle the science in a different way, is the key of success. No matter men, women, young, with experience, without experience, as you said it, Malak, failing is itself positive result. Everyone gonna need to engage in a humanly mad, creative exercise. Thank you very much. Unmuted, Malak.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I will summon all the ladies in order to go to the next session, which is the Q&A. please, for the audience, if you have any questions, you can just put your mic on and your video if you like to ask yourself. Otherwise, you can drop to the chat the chat section.
Just to kick off and summarize, we have had a lot of presentations showing personal experience, the importance of the science, whether the dark technology, the quantum, the cybersecurity, space technology, and how all of this at the end is for the service of a humanity in different way, and that needs a kind of self, motivation, and need a kind of self-determination in order to be able to connect the dots, as Danica said it, use various technology cross-domain and take them from one domain to another, believe in yourself, as Meredith said, to look out of the box, as Shil said in her presentation about the space and the tremendous application that we may not think about it, and also tackle all of that from a different perspective, as it was beautifully concluded by Malak. So please, if you have any question, please feel free. If not, I might have one question for all our panel members, if there is no question coming from the audience. Shall I ask my question, Malak?
Sure, go ahead. We give the time for the audience to drop their question.
Now, you gave us all, larger scope of various applications, space, meteorology, quantum, dark, cybersecurity. And all of that is, a lot of information that maybe the human neurons are not able to digest today. I would like to ask a simple question. Where should be our focus be? Should the focus be on technological side and saying, look, guys, there is, let's say, a matrix and you need to be at a certain level in all those future skills? Or should the focus be on the human capabilities and saying, if you reach a certain level of a human capabilities, no matter if new technology we're going to have in the future, we'll be able to cope with it? What do you think, ladies?
Shelley, can you go first? Because always insightful, so I can hear you and be inspired.
Well, thank you so much. And again, I've so enjoyed being with you all today. I'm going to talk about technology and then creating the workforce of the future, or the mindset of the future. And what I mean by that is, 30, 50 years ago, we used to say, go to school, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and then you get a college degree, and then that's what you do for 50 years, and then you retire. The world has changed, and it's changed because of what you just said, Nabil, technology. Technology is going to continue to advance rapidly. It's going to change the world we work in. One of the things we've heard on the news over the last several weeks is ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, and what will it do? And people are saying, will it take my job? Will it replace me? And the bigger thing we need to say is, it will replace people who don't understand ChatGPT, nor know how to use ChatGPT. And it will create new jobs for people who can harness that technology and use that technology. So what it means for our audience today, and at Space Foundation, we're passionate about creating a workforce that has an innovative and entrepreneurial mindset. It means we need to create people that understand that things change, and we need to continue to change and adapt and learn. And some of you said how you just go online and Google things and learn things and create things. That's what we need to create in the workforce of the future, is that inquisitive mindset that's willing to learn and realize that things will change, and I must change with them and learn new skills, and that's okay. What we're seeing is this rapid changing of technology with quantum, with ChatGPT, is changing the way we do things. And so what I'm going to do is just give you one example and then let my good friend Meredith jump in. When we think about going to the car mechanic, in the old days, 30 years ago, you drove your car to the mechanic and maybe they kept it a week and they tried to figure out what might be wrong with it. And it may have cost you thousands of dollars and you didn't have your car. Now you drive your car to the mechanic, they plug your car into a computer, and your car tells the computer, this is what's wrong with me. Please fix it. And you may get your car back that day. So the technology didn't replace the car mechanic. We still need car mechanics, but it changed the way the car mechanic works on your vehicle to be more efficient. That's how the world will continue to change with technology. We need to continue to evolve, to incorporate technology into our day-to-day lives, whether it's at home with smart homes and security systems, or at work. And then we will be just like the mechanic. We will still have a job, but it will change. So I'm going to pivot over to Meredith. I know she has a lot of great insight as well. So thank you again, Malak and Nabil. I'm so grateful to be here.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you
So
so
being
much.
more flexible, being ready to adapt and to adopt the new, and having a mind of ready to learn all the time. Meredith.
Yes. No, everything Shelley said, I was sitting here nodding my head because I see it every single day, being out in the public, the news stories that we're telling every single day. And I think we have to be adaptable to change, but what's really important is we can't lose ourselves. Because I think a lot of times when we look at change, we get scared. Change is different and something new we have to partake. And a lot of times, sometimes when doing that, we are creating something in ourselves that's nothing like the person we are deep down. And so, I mean, Shelley used the example of the car mechanic, and I can use an example of, in the broadcasting industry, sometimes it goes through my mind, oh my gosh, people are just going to go to an app for forecasts and stuff. But at the end of the day, you have to work with technology and not against it. For example, as a broadcast meteorologist, as a space correspondent, yes, I can see an article online and read it, but as a human, I'm still going to connect with humans on that personal level. And so the way I'm changing, the way I'm adapting is being able to still connect to the people I'm speaking to look them in the eye as another person face to face and say, hey, I'm just like you. And yes, we are seeing technology, we're seeing artificial intelligence helping us become better, become more efficient. But at the end of the day, we still use storytelling. We use that connection to the real everyday events that we all go through, the things that we all share. And that's how we're moving forward, is we're taking the change, but we're integrating it in what we're doing. And so if you're somebody that works in any field of science, you have to be open to the change. Like Shelley said, you have to be willing to allow the world to change as it is, but you have to be willing to, link arm to arm and say, okay, instead of working against this, I'm going to work with it. And then together, you're offering an even bigger package of yourself versus the old package where it was just you. Now you're using something that's moving you forward in life, that's changing things for the better, but it's also changing the way you're doing your job, but it's making you a better person as well. So at the end of the day, I guess what I want to take from this, or you to take from this, is don't lose yourself, be adaptive to change, but take the change and create something new because of the change that's going to benefit people, that keeps it human. Because at the end of the day, we're all still humans. And so we need to connect, we need to support each other, and we need to lift each other up.
One question appearing here is saying that, well, the person agree with all what was said, but calling our attention is concerns with ethics in artificial intelligence, ethics in biotechnology, and others. And he's asking, what do we think? And I think we do all agree that ethical aspects are very important. Some of the area are already well, I would say, regularized. There are international bodies looking to it. There is already for artificial intelligence an ethical body looking to that internationally and at European level, in the US and other. Maybe more is still needed now. Quantum, space, and other. What do you think? Where are we with the ethics there, which was very clearly highlighted? You all highlighted it in your presentation on the human factor, on the ethical hacker, and all the application that, if you don't have that moral aspects, same what happened with dynamite. Reason for which dynamite was created is to help, minors, and then it was used differently. So what do you think?
So Nabil, with quantum, that's an interesting space, because with many hacking tools today, they're very low cost and they're incredibly accessible to a lot of people. There's a term called script kiddies, where it's a real phenomenon, but a young adult who's learning about cybersecurity, who's learning about technology, can go out, they can buy a malicious piece of code, and they can send it out in an email, or they can put it out into the world some other way, and it can cost very little money. So there's this idea of script kiddies where the barriers to do something malicious with code are incredibly low with classical computing. With quantum, it's hugely expensive. It's a big barrier to entry for many people. So at least to start for quantum, I would estimate even for the next 10, 15 years, maybe the next 20 years, you're not going to have ethical issues in terms of people using the tools for malicious intent as an individual. So for quantum, we've actually got a longer runway than most industries do, which is pretty rare. But Meredith, Malak, and Shelley, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you all see.
I'll step in from a legal perspective. Actually, of course, the technology is much faster than the policymaker. And this is one of the problem. This is one of the biggest problem. And I believe the solution itself in the technology also. So it's the problem, if we have even laws and we have regulations, the implementation is very difficult. We see today what's happening with cyber crimes, and actually to have the attribution in terms of the legal perspective is difficult. We see also how we can implement by state-backed actors who are doing huge cyber crimes. And also actually the cyber criminals are using also technology, cutting-edge technologies, which is used also for good. And here comes quantum computer. And the biggest problem with the power of quantum computing is how can we protect this, or how can we mitigate the risk that this technology is in the hand of terrorists. And this is one of the things that it's like before, what kept me not sleeping was space sustainability and the problem of the debris. And actually, it's sometimes I see is like, what if we have a huge issue that we don't have satellite technologies anymore? And today is like, okay, what if quantum computing that can hack a satellite very, in no time? What can happen into space sustainability? What can happen into the power plant of the nuclear plant, the power grids, with everything that we can control through technology, or through the cryptography of today. And that's why the solution is to move forward into the next step, and the US is leading into that with the policies and with the Biden administration on how to prepare to move into the next step with the quantum resistant encryption. I'm not going to say post-quantum encryption, because many people, they don't like that. And Danica, you know that very, very well. And actually, maybe you can highlight this problem with the cybersecurity and quantum computing and how to mitigate the risk. And for now, the policy is still behind because US done the first step. We see that in other countries, they're not there. Actually, in so many countries, I speak in different countries, I'm not going to say the names or whatever, with not only policymaker, with governmental high officials in the government, that they don't even believe that the quantum computing is coming within the next 5 years. They are in denial. They don't think it's true, and they want to invest money in cybersecurity rather than the next step of quantum technology and how to protect their national interest from this imminent threat.
So Malak, to your point about different countries and their leadership, it's been so fascinating to start to see how governments are putting out reports about the quantum threat is coming. Here's what we need to be doing to act. From the US standpoint, one of the things that the Biden administration has been heavily focused on is asking agencies to catalog what their most critical data is. We see this problem come up in artificial intelligence too, but a lot of data is spread across. It's held in different, it's stored in different places. It's very diverse in where it's held, and it's a huge problem to go through and catalog everything and just know what you have and what are the different levels of security that are needed behind it. So it's so interesting that I'm seeing this call from the Biden administration, and then also as I look at the private side, We have cybersecurity leaders who are concerned about quantum, who are putting out their own reports and thoughts about this. They're saying a similar thing. So they're very aligned with the government, and they're saying the first thing you have to do is catalog everything, know what you got, and then start exploring how to protect it. So Malak, you're absolutely right. This is a big problem. It's coming up. It's not waiting for anybody, and it's going to be expensive. The first thing you have to do, though, is take a very thorough inventory to know what you need to protect.
We wrap up. I'll give the floor to Shelley and Meredith to elaborate on that. Actually, with the ethical, implication of technology.
So I agree with you, Malak. Policy is the biggest challenge. The countries that are working on policy and advancement of technology, and you can see it's even a competition. You know, in the U.S., we have a big, robust space industry, but we have challenges with who in the government regulates things. Is it the Department of Commerce? Is it the FAA? Is it the military? And so you can see some countries are being very nimble in creating policies that make it easy for international companies to incorporate and move forward. And an example is, looking at what countries are very beneficial for countries to incorporate for space industries. And you're seeing that some countries are making legislation and policies very quickly and nimbly so that countries can move forward with space mining and space application and other things. And you can see where the US, the Biden administration, is starting to catch up by putting out executive orders that relate to space policies. So that is one area, and whether it's quantum or cybersecurity or space or any of those things, what we're seeing is industry will continue to move forward and government may take more time to legislate. And what happens is we have this gap, this space in there where we kind of call it, the Wild West, or, the final frontier, or we call it self-regulation. And that's where we can sometimes have challenges with ethics and security and equity. And so what we can all do is try to provide the best educational support to our elected officials, sharing with them why space, in my case, why space is so important. Why do we need to create policy and procedures? Why do we need to be nimble and allow commerce to move quickly while providing the oversight that benefits all humanity, that benefits all the citizens in the United States, or benefits all the citizens that have signed the treaties and accords or the Artemis Accords. So that's kind of one of the roles all of us can take today is, are we helping to create education and information that allows citizens to understand the importance of these technologies and how they will personally benefit, and why it's important for legislators to allocate funding for them, and then also provide the education to legislators and policymakers why this technology is so important, how it will benefit us. But there are also the other side of it, the areas that if we don't legislate and look to protect people, there will be malicious actors. So again, I want to thank you. And this is always a fun talk bit to talk about technology and ethics, because at the end of the day, it's not the technology, it's the people. Thank you.
Totally.
Agree 100% there, Shelley. And just to add something real quick, since we're wrapping up, it's also going to come to communicating, responsible journalism, for public relations, and for heads of companies saying, okay, we need to be honest with our communications. We need to work with the press, not work against it, and work to get out the facts, the things people need to know, but also that ways that they can be prepared. I'm a meteorologist. I prepare people for the worst case scenarios. And as much as we don't want to think about the worst case scenarios, we need to make sure that we are prepared, and we are teaching ways of preparedness, and we have backup plans, and we have ways to protect ourselves. Because as we know, our nations run highly on technology for communications. And it's things like ham radios. It's things like texting versus phone calls if something happens. It's having a plan in place. And it's also properly being open in communication and being truthful and getting the facts out there versus letting other people that are malicious or that are trying to shake things up have the floor.
If you allow me, Malak, just one word. Someone is asking from the education perspective how we can do and what we should do. And being a cybersecurity guy and an educator myself, I think one of the words you said all is prepare people for that. We need to prepare the students, and by preparing them, it's not only changing the curricula and changing the content. I think the big shift in education is to change the teaching methodology with which what we are asking the students to do. We need to engage them on a reflective exercise in which they are reflecting on every single thing, on how they can, if they can find an answer from ChatGPT, let them find the answer from ChatGPT, but let them reflect on the usage of it, reflect on the creativity, reflect on the ethical aspect from the human perspective. So that's what we need to do, is to prepare them for not only the technology that we know today, for we do not know, is by acquiring that capability of reflective exercises, reflective analysis, being ready to learn and think differently with known parameters. So it's first the teaching methodology to change before the curriculum. And that just I wanted to conclude from my side with this word. Black, the floor is yours, maybe for the conclusive comment.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Actually, the choice of the ladies today, it's for two reasons. The first one, how inspiring they are to bring diversity from different sectors, and to bring diversity in terms of where we coming from, and the different background that we had, and our paths that led us to be here today for one cause, which is helping women to move forward. And actually what we say in the Arabic say, if you help a woman, actually you help generations, because we are the generation, let's say the multiplying effect of what we do for the next generation, for our grandchildren. And that's the thing. And the second thing is bringing people from different, let's say, background in terms of the foundation side, Space Foundation, the Quantum Institute, also from the science, which is actually with today, there's one scientist with us. It's Meredith, because actually we are coming from different backgrounds and technology and space and cybersecurity, but you are the scientist here. You are speaking science, and science alone cannot do anything. Technology alone cannot do anything. Ethics alone cannot do anything. Law alone cannot do anything. We are all one. We are all complementary, interrelated, and we are there in order to move together from the public sector, from the governmental entities, from also the NGO sector, in order to come together as one and move forward into the next leap. And what I say, it's we are not into the space leap, we are into the quantum leap, which is what gives us the next multiplanetary species big leap into the cosmos. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you a lot. You are amazing. Thank you, Dr. Nabil, for being there. I brought diversity by bringing you in order to be there and not be only ladies, because there is one thing that it is there. Diversity, it's not there to eliminate men from the picture. We are complementary. We're not against men. We cannot use this empowerment tool to make something against men, because we need men there. We are complementary. Thank you so much, all. If you have any final word, please say it, and let's say goodbye to everyone.
Thank you very much, and goodbye. It was an honor, and it's really, really very insightful.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure joining all of you, and I look forward to seeing y'all around the galaxy.
Thanks, everybody. So happy to be here. And I look forward to seeing what everyone's going to accomplish and what we're going to accomplish together. Because like I said, success is never achieved alone, and the galaxy is our limit.
Thank you, everyone. It's incredible to have had you all here, and keep in touch.
And I say thank you so much, and to Mars and beyond. Thank you. Bye-bye.